What's up, everybody? This is BakaBites. I'm Frankfurter, that is Magically Average, and today, let's have a quality check here. So the fall 2024 anime season has just started. We're in week 3, technically, and it's been weird. It's been up and it's been, like, there are a lot of highs and there are a lot of lows, and the quality in between is just kind of odd. So today, we really wanted to kind of do a deep dive and dig into should we be concerned about the quality of anime that is being presented to us this season. Now, quality in this instance can not necessarily just mean animation because there are a few things that we'll talk about in regards to animation, but also in regards to storytelling. And in this animation that's presenting that storytelling. So I kind of wanted to start on that bit because or no, I actually wanted to start on the animation because the animation one I feel like is going to be a bit easier to talk about and digest rather than a full blown like animation and story mixture. Like, do you really need one to have the other?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the quality. Right now around the internet's all ablaze, you have people up in arms for good reason about the quality animation of Uzumaki. See, episode. There's a 4 season episode because it's a short book. It's maybe 20 some odd chapters, if that. And first episode, gorgeous, absolutely beautiful, knocked it out of the park, 10 out of 10. And then you get to episode 2, and you look at it and you're like, great googly moogly, this is horrendous to look at.
Yeah.
This is this is just offensive to the eyes.
Yeah.
And it's sad because this was the one like coming into the season that you and I were like, they're finally gonna do Junji Ito well. They're gonna do him justice.
Yep.
And then this happens. And they've basically I think it was the director or the key animator, somebody higher up who's working on this project has come out to
Producer.
say, yes, the producer, sorry,
Yeah.
you are right. Came out and was basically like, yeah, so they gave us an ultimatum. Either we can make a really awesome episode 1 and then cancel the rest of the show, or we can make a really awesome episode 1 because of funding, and then just half-ass the last
The
3.
the full quote from the post from Blue Sky, which since has been taken down from producer Jason DeMarco, is quote, I can't talk about what went down, but we were screwed over, and the options were A, not finish and air nothing and call it a loss. B, just finish and air episode 1 and leave it incomplete. Or C, run all 4, warts and all. Obviously warts and all being the bumps of animation quality and lack thereof, I guess. And they said, out of the respect for the hard work, we chose C. They go on in the post. They had a whole string of Blue Sky posts, but they said, yeah, it's shocking that someone higher up gave them this ultimatum, basically, as a producer of the show. They said, quote,
So
unfortunately, I can't tell them who to blame it on, but someone is definitely at fault here, and we all just had to do our best when things imploded, end quote.
now, how much do you want to bet? And this is my theory as to what happened here. Knowing my limited knowledge of Japanese animation and how the ongoings of it are, do you think that they gave Adult Swim a budget and said, "Hey, get it done in this," and they thought it was this much per episode, and once they were done with episode 1, they're like, "Okay, where's the next check?" And they're like, "No, no, that was it. You had that much of a budget to do for the whole thing."
Yeah.
Like, that's where I'm thinking this may have gone because the way their animation works is far different from the way TV shows and animation works over here in the States. And I think that maybe something wasn't done well in translation that it got to that point where Adult Swim thought it was cool, we're getting this much per episode, and then in reality it was no, you're getting this much period.
I I find that hard to believe. I think it ultimately came down to the studio not realizing the timetable that they were working with is my guess.
Hmm.
It's I don't know. The the quote goes on to say just a lot of people worked hard on it, and I didn't think actions of just one or two people should be the reason it never saw the light of day. Maybe that's the wrong choice. I truly don't know, but those people have a right to be annoyed and disappointed. I'm glad you are digging it. I'm assuming just digging it being that people are still enjoying the first episode but have gripes about the second. I
Right.
it would seem odd to me that a studio that would be reached out to produce an anime that is airing during the fall season would have, I guess, confusion surrounding the amount of pay for it. Whereas I think the more logical approach, or the more sensible reasoning to what could have happened, is that in all likelihood it's due to the fact that they just didn't properly schedule out how long it was going to take to do these episodes. I
But
think
that's the weird thing because this project was announced. Do you want to take a guess when this project was announced?
oh, it was announced a while ago.
2019.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean that they started it then. They could have just been still looking for a studio.
They were storyboarding in 2020. So they've been actively working on this since 2020.
That seems odd to me that they would be put on that if 4 years, and you're saying they couldn't complete it in 4 years. That seems wrong.
So here's a snippet that I'm finding. Granted, take this with a grain of salt. I haven't looked at the actual source. I'm on the Wikipedia for Uzumaki, and it says the series was originally announced to being animated by producer Maki Tarashima Furuta. In July 2023, some articles mentioned that it was being produced by both Drive and Akatsuki. However, when the series premiered in September 2024, Drive's name was not included in the credits. Animation production for the first episode was instead credited towards planning and production company Fugaku. The
Mm.
second and third episodes were credited as being produced by Akatsuki. However, Nagahama was only credited for storyboards, with Yuji Moriyama credited as the director in his place. So, what it sounds like is that nobody really knew. I don't know if it's just a breakdown of too many hands in the pot, and nobody knew who was doing what and what basically studio signed on to do animation compared to not.
Yeah.
I that It just seems so odd that you could be in production from 2020 to just not knowing who's doing animation, who's producing, who's doing what. So
So,
I feel bad for Junji Ito, I think, the most out of this whole thing.
yeah. I mean, Junji
Because like
Ito has had a string of
awful
his
luck.
yeah, when it comes to adaptation.
Yeah,
So,
he has infamously never had a good adaptation, which really
yeah.
sucks because like this was super promising.
So an article
And
from sorry, go ahead.
go- no, I was gonna say, and then it's just like this happens at episode 2, and it's just like, well, shit.
So, yeah, to that point though, an article from MovieWeb by Archie Fenn. We'll put the link in the podcast notes, but it says that the producer they where's the line? Um, Fans have been heavily speculating on the potential reasons why. It has been reported that the series underwent a change in production team after the first episode. So kind of I think what you were saying, but Studio
Alluding to that.
Fugaku were responsible for the stunning debut episodes, while Studio Akatsuki took over animation on the second and third episodes. Fortunately, Fugaku reportedly returned for the fourth and final episode. So this
Hmm.
might, I guess, make the presumption a little bit more clear in that it is likely just due to a complete
Studio.
mismanagement.
Yeah.
Well, it's a mismanagement. Like it's difficult enough coordinating between one team on an anime adaptation because you have to take into consideration the mangaka because normally they do like to have them involved to some degree when it comes to adapting their works, right?
True.
You have to work with the producing studio, whomever's actually going to be airing it, right? For
So
airtime.
Adult Swim in this instance.
Yeah, Adult Swim, which is awkward, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the only other ones that of recent have been the Fooly Cooly, Shoegaze, and
Complex C.
oh yeah, and Complex C. Good God, we can forget about that one.
I
But
was gonna say I watched episode of that one. That was
yeah,
a interesting
so
first step.
taking into
Anyways,
consideration that, on top of now you're having to go back and forth between two different studios, seems like a tall task to try to manage effectively, and I feel like that's been the cause of their problems.
yeah,
If I had to take a guess, that seems to be the reason why, because having to manage between two different studios that have likely two completely different animation quality standards and styles is a challenge. And then to make it cohesive between only 4 episodes is almost near impossible, in I would imagine.
yeah, I'd agree. But yeah, it's unfortunate what's happening. Hopefully, though, with that news that you just said, hopefully episode 4 is kind of a return to form of episode 1, and they just finish on a high note. You can only hope.
Yeah.
I don't know. Depends on how long they've had to actually work on it compared to episode 1 and 4. It could be, but there's no way of really knowing. So,
It's
knocking on wood.
yeah. I mean, but it is one of those things where you score an A on the first test, you get 2 Fs, you score another A for the final one, you're still tracking at a C, right? You're still tracking as just average.
Yeah.
Like this had the
I
potential of being like, top 5 for the season if it stayed with it, cuz I mean story-wise it's fantastic,
yeah.
right? It's one of the probably the more notorious works from Junji Ito in terms of like different panels being very like recognizable, characters being
Yeah.
recognizable, like moments being, you know, certainly if even if you haven't even read it, you've seen some things around the internet or, wherever.
Yeah.
Um, but to have sort of that immediate slip up come episode 2 seems like it could just put it way, way down the list. I'm sure many people even dropped it just after that second episode. Just said, "No, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stick around for that."
If I'm gonna be honest, I have yet to watch this one. This one, I was just gonna wait for all 4 episodes to come out, and I was just gonna watch them all because it's only 4 episodes. The last one should be airing, I believe, this weekend.
Yeah.
So I'll wait until the last one's out, and then I'll watch all 4 and be done with it. But something else that's airing this week that's kind of garnering a bit more ire to the fan, I guess the fandom is Blue Lock. Now, I recently, and I mean within the past month, watched season 1 of Blue Lock. And I understand why a lot of people like it. It was okay to me. It's one of those shows that it has a ton of internal dialogue, and I have no real good patience for internal dialogue heavy shows. It's just kind of like, hey, a split second has gone by, but like in like real time, but in showtime and what we're actually watching, 3 minutes have gone by because he's talking to himself. It's kind of like one of those, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that's infuriating.
Yeah.
But I will say that the animation quality it was fine. It was nice when it did like kind of like the ego parts and the monster parts where it's just like, oh, the monster inside me is talking to me, or like and they have like the kind of watercolor splashes and whatnot. Great. The rest of it was fine.
Mhm.
It's serviceable. It's okay. You had 25 episodes. I understand. And not every single episode's going to be a banger, but apparently season 2 has taken a huge dip, and I have not gotten to season 2 yet. I actually started the first episode today, and I was like, this is more of the same. I don't understand. But you were telling me pre-show that it's not necessarily the animation as it is more so become a slideshow when it
Yeah.
should be animated. So if
Yeah.
you can expand a bit more, because
So
I'm unaware as to
so
what everybody's clamoring about.
the best part of season 1, to me at least, were how fluid the scenes were when they were actually playing soccer. Like, you could talk about animation quality, and yes, it did look pretty. I liked the style choices they did when depicting some of the characters, adding, like you said, the splashes of kind of like watercolor and these like
Yeah.
really vibrant scenes of like backdrops that were like kind of like popped out, made the characters really stand out too. Like it looked very pretty to the eyes. But the biggest grab for me season 1 was just how well they were able to animate the scenes of them actually playing soccer. Granted, they did use CGI for some of it, but I think it was necessary, and it didn't,
A lot towards the end of the season.
which is fine. Which is
Yeah,
fine. I
it
mean,
is.
like
It's fine.
it's not something I felt like got, gave it any sort of like negative marks on its
No,
overall
but
scoring.
the first time you did see the CG characters just running kind of not necessarily in place, but just like running down the pitch, you're just like, "Oh, okay." And then
Yeah,
it phases into the back of your mind. You're like, "Okay, they're playing soccer. Great, whatever."
it's still, I mean, in my mind I'm like, it's okay because of what they're doing in this scene. Like nothing's actually being like captured. It's not like they're showing a goal or they're showing like an insane play. It's like voice narration over top of a bird's eye view of what's going on the pitch. So you're like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
This season, though, from what I've seen, and also from what I've heard from other people too, because I'm not fully caught up either, but what I've seen so far is they've taken a bigger focus on just the animation quality of like still shots. So less the actual the fluid animations of them playing soccer and like, passing or shooting, making incredible saves, whatever the case might be, executing a formation or a play. They've kind of limited those to just these almost still shots with like really eye gripping animation and colors. Which again, like it looks nice. Like it still looks pretty. There's not a there's not a significant drop in like the animation quality per se, but it's how it's being captured. I think that's the biggest departure from the first season that in my mind and what I think other people have echoed is kind of the biggest issue here. That where
Eh,
like we're not getting those really cool sequences of like a player flying up the pitch on the far side, getting a pass like over top two defensemen's heads and like doing a bicycle kick in, right? It's basically just like shot of player already like with like maybe like a zoom sound effect or animation and a shot of a player like what looks like to be standing still, but they're in the process of running, being like, I'm open. A snap back to the person being like, oh my gosh, inner monologue. I have to pass it to them, but how? And then like another shot of like defenseman being like grr, and then pans back to another still shot of them being like, but I have to, and then it's like kick, and then ball in the air, and people are like, and like all these almost look like panel shots, like comic book panel
right.
shots, where it's just like still image, still image, still image. It's
So
yeah,
I'm watching just kind of a video, somebody breaking it down, in which I'm not listening to it. I'm just watching what they're presenting, and if that's exactly what the episode is, then I get the frustration because yeah, it is very much still image, and like how kind of fuck, what was, oh, excuse me, the Netflix show that everybody was excited about, and then it was literally just the manga colored in. It was the House Husband,
oh yeah, the way of the house husband.
The Way of the House Husband.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
that,
like
except
that.
they just keep like moving the characters. Like they just take whatever cell that they have and they just push
Kind
them
of.
to the left or right.
Yep.
And it's just like, and the only thing that's moving are the lines, like as if they're running. And it's just like, okay, that I can understand it being bad, but it I think we're jumping the gun here. I think that it's so early in the season. I understand that people are. expecting a lot because the season 1 was pretty darn good for animation. It was at some points passable, other times great.
Mm-hmm.
They just had a movie come out this past summer in the United States. I think it was earlier in Japan, and apparently that was great too. So I think that there was a lot riding high in this season 2, and a lot of expectations placed upon it. And to see something like that, yeah, I can understand why people are upset, but at the same time, y'all are jumping the gun. It's episode 2. We've got this. They
Dude, what do you mean we're
confirmed.
jumping the gun? What about we were just talking about Uzumaki?
I
There were-
understand,
it-
but
it-
Uzumaki's different because Uzumaki's 4 episodes. That is a
right, but
much shorter timetable than a season of Blue Lock, which is, I believe, confirmed for 24 episodes.
here's the thing: we have history. We have episodes we can refer back to and do a side by side comparison and be like, because it's the same studio. I'm looking it up right now. This is done by 8
Yeah,
Bit
Studio
Studio.
8.
Yeah, it's the same exact studio. They also were the ones that did the movie too. So it's like we have a precedent set, right? We have a normalcy set on how these should look based on what we've seen in the past.
Yeah,
So
the only thing that I've seen that would change that narrative is that back in April 1st of this year, Studio 8-Bit was acquired by Bandai Namco. So they
on
were acquired by another, like, party, essentially.
on April Fool's Day.
Oh, shit. I'll double check that, but yeah, shit, I may have fallen for that one.
um
Uh,
I mean, regardless though,
no, no, they were acquired
yeah,
by
I mean
Bandai.
that seems like a pretty big announcement. So I it's just it's yes, it's episode 2. I don't think people are rioting in the streets or calling for the entire season to be canceled, right?
No,
But it
by no
is
means.
I I've said it before and I'll keep saying it again and again too. The first few episodes of your season, even as a returning show, matter.
It can make or break you.
Yeah, it matters. Each season you should come in with the mentality of regardless of fan base, right? Like
Yeah.
I have to make sure the audience sticks around. Even if you're a
Mhm.
My Hero or an Attack on Titan or Jujutsu Kaisen, whatever the case might be, you have to go in with the mentality of I need to keep my audience around. Like
Yeah.
Attack on Titan felt that hit hard. Granted, theirs wasn't so much animation, albeit they went from Studio Wit to Mappa after the first
Right.
season, I believe. So,
No, after it was for season 4. Wit did the first 3, and then
that's
Mappa
right.
did season 4.
For season 4, which that's when we got all the crazy black lines or crazier black lines.
Crazier black lines, which, by the way, Blue Lock also had
Yeah,
crazy black lines, to be fair.
they do. Um, but like between seasons 1 and 2, right? Like you have, I mean, from the people I've talked to as well, and myself included, like a lot of people just dropped it. I dropped it because it was
Yeah,
boring as shit. I was like, these
I
first handful of episodes were bad, like
I
really,
agreed.
really
I
bad.
I lost interest too in season 2, and then eventually I came back to it because I heard so much hype around it. So I get that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think
So
that the first it's what I watched an anime recently. I forget the name. It was like on a anime gatari or something like that. But I can look up the name later. It was they it's all about just an anime club in high school, and they even make the joke that the first 3 episodes, you put your money into the production of the first 3 episodes to get everybody in, and then people stick around to see how it ends, no matter if it is really that good or bad. And there is a lot of truth to that. I will stick
yeah,
around just to see what happens. Like, there are 2 shows this season that are objectively not great at all, that I am still watching because I'm like, "You know what? I'm interested to see how this goes." But, like, I know I'm gonna drop these shows. They're not great, but they are fun. The first 2 episodes have been fun to where I'm like, "Yeah, I can stick around to see how this goes." And I'm trying to think of the name of them. It's the Let This Grieving Soul Die or Retire, or whatever it is,
oh,
and the Most Notorious Talker one. Like, those 2 shows objectively are not very good. Um, but the first two episodes have actually been very quality to the point where I'm just like, yeah, I want to continue this. Um, but to see Blue Lock kind of start iffy is a
Yeah.
bit surprising, to say the least, because it is. I looked it up. It's not 25 or 24 episodes like season one is. It's only 14, so it's a bit of an extended season, but it's
Yeah.
not
But it's not a
fully. It's not a two core.
and I so I don't know.
It's just it's
This
it's interesting because I
this
feel like that they're probably going to put most of that budget to the actual U20 game because this whole season is Blue Lock versus U20 Japan.
yeah.
Spoiler alert: they're playing the U20 team.
Oh,
Yeah.
couldn't see that coming.
So yeah, I feel like that they're going to put majority of the production budget into that giant game that is this entire arc rather than the
I
first two episodes, and it might bite them in the butt for it, honestly, if it's gonna be like this for the next episode or two.
well, I think
Because then you just set a precedence with your audience of this is how it's gonna be.
yeah. And this is exactly why I named the videos for this for where we're streaming on TikTok and Twitch. Which if you're listening, you can listen to us live and watch us live as we're recording Mondays. Quick little plug.
Yep.
That's why I named the topic for this "Deadlines Destroy Anime." Like we've seen it too many times now, and we've been harping on this for the last like probably year and a half too. On like we're seeing more and more anime get announced for each and every season, and like the lists are now up to like 75 plus anime, like new anime coming out, whether it's like entirely new series, continuing series, whatever the case might be. There's just the amount of anime being produced is so high compared to what it was like even I feel like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, where we had a little bit more of a manageable list of like, there's still a lot, still like 45, 50 new shows, right? But like we're quickly approaching a scenario where I feel like we're just going to go into like the hundreds. Just be like, with the amount of streaming services they have now, and with how AI could potentially be leveraged to do a lot of like the animation work on like maybe backdrops and stuff like that, it's like, why not? If you can, if a studio is like, hey, guess what? I can churn out 10 anime a season and have no issues with deadlines. I bet studios would freak out and be like, well, crap, there's our competition.
You're
Now we got
hired.
to well, no, it's like, well, now we got to keep up with them, right? This studio is marketing that they can do 10 a season. We can't even manage 3. They're doing almost triple what we're doing. We're doing more than triple. So it's
I
like,
was trying to find it. It was JC staff. They're doing 3, 6, 7. They're doing 8 shows this season.
yeah, that's a lot.
Actually, no, 9, 10. I forgot that they're continuing 2 others. They're doing 10 shows this season. 2.5 Dimensional Seduction, Fairy Tale 100-Year Quest, Delco's Nursery, great show by the way, Murai in Love, which is on Hulu. Haven't watched it yet. Don Machi season 5, Duel Masters Lost. I'm not going to pronounce the rest of that. Megalumaire, the stories of girls who couldn't be magicians. Which, by the way,
That one
I
looks
watched.
pretty.
I watched part of episode 1. Gorgeous show. It is a children's show, but gorgeous show. I couldn't
Yeah.
watch anymore because it is just directed entirely towards children, but it
Oh,
is phenomenally gorgeous. They're also doing the Do-Over Damsel Conquers the Dragon Emperor and then Demon Lord 2099. Like they have 10 shows this season.
yeah, that's crazy.
That's wild.
I don't think we've ever had a season where one studio has done that many. Granted, a handful of them are continuations. Like I know 2.5 and Delco's Nursery are
And
Delco's
Fairy Tale.
and Fairy Tale.
Technically Mariah in Love because that started in September.
Yeah. So like there are some continuations, and JC Staff is a pretty large studio, so I'm sure they have the ability to like divvy out and divide out between, maybe smaller teams. Yeah, I mean it's still
People.
it's still a lot. But again, I think it kind of goes to what we've been saying, and something that I don't think will ever happen in a million years because it would completely shift the way that the anime market is. But having these deadlines and having it be, hey, FYI, you have 3 months. You have a 3-month window. If you elect to have your anime air in a particular season, whether it be winter, spring, summer, or fall, you have a 3-month window to get that done. Otherwise, you fucked.
Yeah.
Right? We have special circumstances for like if there's um like sicknesses that go around. I know that Uncle from Another World had theirs put on hiatus until the following season, and that was airing on Netflix, which that was very surprising because I mean like it's Netflix.
Yeah,
So
Netflix does a very good job about weather scheduling, I feel like, in general.
yeah. I mean they don't have the airtime issues that it would that these shows get when they're airing in Japan. So I don't know what it was like airing in Japan live, but
For
the fact that
Netflix. Yeah.
right, but for
Uncle.
the
Oh, sorry,
for
sorry. Yeah.
Uncle from Another World, yeah. But for the fact that I mean, like domestically, we get it on Netflix, it wasn't so much of an issue. But it's still like that's a huge hit. Like you've lost out on your entire season due to an illness in the studio production studio, and now you have to shift it over to a new season, right? You have the other issue, the horrible events that took place when one of the studios burned down and stuff. Like there's obvious situations where it's like, okay, we give you the benefit of the doubt. We give you the pass, right?
Yeah.
Understandable circumstances. If it's
Yeah.
a situation of like with Bug Films and Zom 100, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna be late on this episode," they just go, "All right, find another fucking time to air your episode, but you're shit out of luck for this week.
Yeah. No,
You're
that was
done."
the same thing that happened with fuck, why can I never remember the show until I don't need the show name? The one that we thought was great and then it had a horrible last episode.
Oh, Wonder Egg Priority.
Yeah, Wonder Egg. It's the same thing that happened there. They're like they couldn't finish production on episode like 10 or something, so they or 9 and they had to do a recap episode and then 9 and 10 9 10 11 came out and there was no time for 12 because their time slots were taken.
So they had to wait like three
So they
months or
waited
whatever,
3 months and they did the last episode as an extended like 45-minute episode and it
and
was
and it still wasn't that good.
still have not watched that episode.
Well, as I say, you're not missing a lot. But yeah, I mean,
But
just but it all stems again. It stems from this like this the deadline thing, right? Like, okay, here in the United States, we don't have the issues of like things not airing due to missing a window on like actually having an episode be completed, right? Like everything's produced ahead of time. Everything's touched up and finalized ahead of time. Like you have like even your like reality shows and stuff, right? Like
yeah.
they're not aired the day before. Maybe like your Jeopardies and like game shows and stuff because those are easier. But like the reality
Fun
show,
fact about those, they literally film like
oh yeah,
4 of them a day or 8
yeah
of them in a day and then
they film
just
they film like a full week
yeah.
of like a Wheel of Fortune or whatever in one day. They just maybe
Yep.
change out the audience. That's about it.
Yeah.
Like it's super easy, right? Like and then even like cartoons too. Like cartoons are produced ahead of time and they're completed ahead of time, and then they're like, hey, these are episodes are airing at this time for your completed show. Anime is sometimes not even fully finished by the time
You just gotta
episode.
look at Jujutsu Kaisen last year.
Yeah, like you should basically come into whatever anime you're watching, episode 1, with the mindset that my anime might not even have episode 3 done yet.
Yeah.
Like that, because
It'll
that's a
be
reality. That's like
yeah.
it's the way that the studios operate because one, they're producing an absolute truckload of anime each season, and two, they're forced to hit these deadlines. So keeping it like the quantity of the workload on top of now you're putting a timestamp on exactly when these have to be done. You're having to manage like just all these different layers when it comes to producing anime that I feel like it's hurting production studios. Obviously, we know all the stories coming out from like Mappa and other studios of like workers being completely like just worked into the ground and
Yep.
not getting enough time to get away from the studios and work. Like it's all because of the way that the framework has been built around the anime market, like when producing new anime. Like it's almost like it's destroying itself.
I would agree. I do find it odd, and I wonder how if people will go kind of the Netflix way. Like, I feel like Netflix is like a half and half between, hey, we're producing episodes now, and like, the show isn't finished, but we're still putting them out.
Right.
And then you have outliers like this season where Ranma one half, the entirety of the season got leaked. We know that the
Yeah.
entirety of the show is done, which I'm thankful for because we are getting simuldubs on that show, and I've watched the first two episodes. Delightful. They've done it well. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Animation quality is great. I wonder what they are doing over there at Netflix that makes it so different that they can have their
Well,
basically just have their cake and eat it too, in the sense that they have shows that are completed, but also they do have other shows that aren't, and they're still doing week to week.
so I mean, we could spend so much time on this topic, and
We can.
it's
And there is one
there's
more
so
topic that I do want to talk about in regards to quality and
yeah.
whatnot.
Well, yeah. So I'll wrap up my point in a response to what you were saying, and it goes to the fact that we're so incredibly spoiled on the Western side of the world when it comes to anime. We are.
Yeah.
Like you can look at the fact that we have to watch everything through 20,000 different streaming sites. Granted, it sucks, okay? I get it. You can go into the fact that the we're not sometimes we don't even get dubs for our anime for quite some time, right? We're watching it subtitled. That sucks. I get it, okay? But just know that we are incredibly spoiled compared to when it airs in Japan because anime airs on live TV. It has a weekly set airtime in Japan. We just get it dropped into a bucket on a streaming service where we can watch it anytime we want. Granted, it then transitions to streaming sites in Japan, but like we're not having to worry about like, oh, the Olympics are on. My anime's now been canceled or pushed back 3 weeks. Oh, there's like right now what's happening in the United States. There's a political race happening and the debate's on tonight. Welp, guess I'm not watching this week's episode of the show that I love. Because it airs at this time on this channel, guess it's getting pushed back to another week, right? So we're not having to deal with that. So from that
Right.
perspective, we are incredibly spoiled. And again, it would be great to have the approach of a Netflix, right? Where you can just drop all of your episodes at once. But that's not how the anime market's built. The anime market is built when it comes to production, you're producing episodes for live TV. That bottom line. You're producing
Period.
episodes for
Yeah.
live TV, right? Your
So
episode, you are slotted for this time, for this airing
date
season, right? Yeah, this date, this time, this channel on this
this
air
many weeks.
for this season, whether again, whether it's fall, winter, whatever the case might be, right? That
Right.
is your slot. If you miss that slot, you are fucked. You will
Yep.
have to figure out a way to make it up. It could be maybe pushing it into another week. It may be doubling up on a single week. It could be, to like you were saying with Wonder Egg, 3 months from when your last episode airs. Could be 3 months until you get your final episode out, right?
Yeah.
It's all because the fact that anime is aired live in Japan. If we could approach it from a streaming service only, like a Netflix, like when it came to Pluto or Blue Eyed Samurai, or I'm trying to remember. I don't think Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim was weekly. Dungeon
No,
Meshi is weekly.
Scott Pilgrim was all out at
Oh,
once.
there you go. Scott
Dungeon Meshi
Pilgrim.
wasn't. Pluto was all at once.
Yeah, Dungeon
There was
Meshi wasn't.
another horror-esque anime that was on Netflix that came out all at once as well. I forget the
Yeah,
name of it off the top of my head, but yeah, there was a lot that came out all at once. It's a crapshoot,
crap.
whatever. Yeah, it's a crapshoot as to what's gonna happen with Netflix, but I do appreciate that there have been no delays thus far for Netflix, and I feel like they're doing something correctly. We've only
Well,
had
because
really one instance of a show not having good animation and just a very big quality dip, and that was Comey Can't Communicate.
Oh yeah. But
But I
I
feel like that was like the outlier compared to everything else.
but I think though the anime that come out in all at once on Netflix, they're not produced live in
No,
Japan.
they're done. They're
Right,
fully done.
they're finished. So
Yeah,
again, you can't take that approach to the system that currently exists because it doesn't work. Until
agreed.
until they go, "Hey, you have the selection, you have the choice to go streaming only or live," then maybe we'll see a change, and maybe we'll start to depart from this all anime are aired live in Japan and then go to streaming services. Maybe the ask is they want it to be all on streaming services. Who knows? I'm sure
Yeah.
there's an immense pushback from the networks in Japan that are like, "Do you know how much
Oh,
eyes we get on TV for anime?"
all
Like,
those relationships and everything else that they have to like be like, "Hey, we did this for you, you do this for us, don't
yeah,
back out now." Like
yeah,
I'm sure artists are clamoring to be like, "Put us on streaming so we could take our fucking time and get this done properly."
agreed.
But again, it's not. That's the way of the world in Japanese animation, and it's not going to happen for a while. I think we did an episode earlier this year, and I predicted that the you had said something about the fact that anime is going to change sometime soon, and I said that the only way it's going to change is if the artists go on strike.
Yeah.
And that I don't see happening for another 2 years
Oh, I
probably.
agree. I agree. I mean, the only hope that we can have domestically is the anime that comes out all at once on streaming services like Netflix and others. If those receive if those receive enough
Praise.
attention, yeah, and praise, and actually start, topping charts. There you go. Uh,
Nailed it.
for yearly anime, then maybe we might see a change, right?
Yeah.
Like
But now I
maybe
want to
this anime award season with Pluto could change that.
it could. But I want to flip something to you and kind of change the topic for a more positive, because there are a
Oh,
bunch of shows this season that I would say animation wise not the best quality. However, I think that the substance behind it is so good that it doesn't matter if the animation is great or stellar quality.
yeah.
And the two examples that I do want to talk about, first one being Yakuza Fiance. I don't know the subtitle for it, but Yakuza Fiance. I watched episode 1 and it's got a unique art style, but by no means is the animation fantastic. Like I've seen slice of lifes have phenomenal animation. It looks gorgeous. Everything about it is like top notch.
Hmm.
This on the other hand doesn't feel it. It feels like a step down. This feels like you're in episode 5 of the season already in terms of quality of animation, but the substance behind it was so fun and intriguing that I was just like, I don't care. I really don't care about the animation for this because what they are actually presenting, what you're supposed to care about the most, which is the story and the characters, are actually pretty darn good. They are interesting.
Hmm.
They have a good premise here. They've gotten their hooks in me, not with animation, but with substance. And I feel like that it does take a good series for that to actually happen. And for some reason, it's happened twice this season. Yakuza Fiance, as I just said, and then 365 days to the wedding, or 365 days to the wedding.
Hmm.
Episode 1 and 2, by no means are good animation. By no means. They are just like they are passable quality. It's like, yep, this is fine. Sure, put it out. But 365 days to the wedding to me is just a fun story because it's got a different hook for a slice of life. Again, Yakuza Fiance, different hook. This one, different hook. And because it's so different, I'm like, yes, I'm enjoying this. I like this. It's two introverts that are complete, like, you would think, oh, introverts, they're all the same. No, completely different.
Hmm.
Very different introverts in which they are trying to avoid basically deportation by their company to work instead of in Siberia, I think they changed Siberia because they don't want to have anything to do with really Russia and the war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So they're like, we're not going to promote that anyways, even though they're using this in the sense of like a punishment. Um,
I mean,
Instead, they changed. I mean, they do. They changed Siberia to Anchorage, Alaska, which is
which
wild in its own
okay,
right. Like,
it
it's not the most like. It's not as not obsolete. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not as unpopulated as Siberia is.
yeah.
It's an actual major
It
city
I was gonna
in
say
Alaska.
what a poor jab at Alaska. Like Anchorage is I think the biggest city I want to say in Alaska.
If it's not Anchorage, it's Juneau.
Yeah, I
I
was gonna
don't know
say
which one's bigger, but yeah, it's like
or
one of the biggest
Fairbanks.
cities. Yeah, I don't know about that one, but yeah. Regardless, it's one of the top three biggest cities in Alaska, and it's just like, why this? Why this change? But at the same time, it's like, you know what? It is fucking Alaska. Like, you
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know anybody who wants to live in Alaska. I know people who want to go visit and fish and do all that and do the touristy things of Alaska. Great. But live there? No. So it's like, okay, I understand that. Good quality of life change there. Wanting to avoid, the unnecessary war that Russia's been
Yeah, yeah.
waging. But regardless, politics aside, the animation has been super just fine and passable. It hasn't been anything stellar, but the story that they've presented has been so much fun that I'm like, yes, I'm in. You've got your hooks into me. I'll keep watching this week to week. And the first two episodes have been a lot of fun, and I will definitely continue it. Granted, I've been reading the manga for it. I've read the first 4 volumes, and like I know that I like it because of that. But at the same time, not everything that I enjoyed manga wise has transitioned well into anime, even slice of life. A couple seasons ago, there was shoot, what was the one about the mangaka and the alien girl? Essentially, why can I not think of it? Golly, hold on, I'm gonna
The
turn around here.
mangaka and the alien girl.
Yeah, the girl that came from the island, Galaxy Next Door.
Oh yeah,
I
Galaxy
really
Next
enjoyed
Door.
that manga. That anime was piss poor. It was awful. It was not good.
Yeah.
Like it there has to be some substance. You have to bring it to life in some sort of way. And the writing in A Galaxy Next Door was honestly not great, but the writing in 365 Days to the Wedding has been great. It's been fun. It's been a good series, and I'm enjoying it. And I think that there is something to say that just because your anime doesn't have the best quality animation doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. Yeah, it takes a point or two off because of the animation, but by no means is it a failing grade because of just animation. As long as everything else is there with voice acting, writing, and just general pacing, you've got a hit on your hands. I think that there's nothing wrong with that inherently.
I mean, I would push back to say an animation is still important. I think you can certainly lose an audience by having it look less than desirable, especially if it's something taken from, existing source material.
Yeah,
You know, if it's a light novel, you have a little bit more freedom because you're not dealing with like artist rendition of, what the characters
right.
actually look like in a manga, but you could still lose an audience. But I mean, to agree with your point, but from my perspective, there's two anime that come to mind that of recent that I feel like a lot of people would look at and be like, "Wow, this looks kind of bad,"
Okay.
and I don't like it. And the two that come to mind immediately are Kubo and Let Me Be Invisible, and The Dangers in My Heart.
I would disagree with Dangers in My Heart. I don't think that that's kind of plain Jane.
Well, no, we're not saying plain Jane. I'm saying animation. Like if you're not familiar with the manga and you don't know what the style looks like or how the characters look, you might look at The Dangers in My Heart and be like, this looks kind of odd.
Mm, ooh.
Like the characters look weird, like the style looks weird. I mean, granted, like everything in the backgrounds look nice, which in this day and age, it's hard to find an anime that has like really abysmal backgrounds or like color palettes and things like that. But like, the characters, they look odd, and it's like, well, yeah, they're almost one-to-ones to how they're drawn in the manga. Same with Kubo and Let Me Be Invisible. Like
Yeah.
those characters, the animation style for the characters look odd. It looks, it's unique, but I wouldn't say it's pretty. But in my mind,
Yeah.
both of those are fantastic because one, they keep with the style of the manga, right? It keeps the identity and the soul of the manga within the anime. And then seeing them brought to life in animation is just one step further. That's great. I think both did an excellent job from that regard. But the biggest pull for me for both of those, and this is where I agree with you the most, is like the story. Like the story is what keeps you around. Both of
Yeah.
them had superb storytelling. They had great, character development moments and episodes. They had fantastic, soundtracks behind them as well, which was also kept it very entertaining. Like
Just
they were,
just thinking about Dangers of My Heart season 2, just like it's getting me there. Like
yeah.
I welled up a handful of times throughout season
Oh,
2,
it's
just whether it be the character interactions or just like the oh you poor sweet summer child, you cringy motherfucker, you are going to wake up one day and be like in a cold sweat, like why did I
why
do
did I?
this?
Yeah. Oh no, that
Like
that
yeah, no,
anime,
I
that anime
it
deserves all the praise, all the
which if you
praise.
have not watched it, it's on High Dive. Go watch both seasons. It's as close to perfection as you can get.
Yeah,
It is
it's
so incredible.
it's one of the best slice of life like romance anime to come out in
And it's
quite some time.
it's so nice that it's just a wholesome show. It's not overtly sexual because they are
Yeah,
dealing with middle schoolers. Like they're not dealing with high schoolers this time. It is literal middle school like puppy love type
yeah.
deal.
It's
Like
it's
it's super sweet and endearing and yeah.
yeah.
But I will add one more show to your list of like it's not the best quality animation. The characters themselves kind of look a little odd if you don't know the source material or anything, but the story is so good and just the character interactions are so interesting that I kept coming back more and more. And this was one that I had to wait for the rest of the dub to come out because I had started
Oh,
it, kind of dropped off, and then came back to it because the dub was fully out. And that's Bartender Glass of God.
okay. I
I
I
think that
thought I
that
had it pegged, but it was it.
what
You've.
do you think it was?
I thought you were gonna say Call of the Night.
No, that one I enjoyed through and through. I had my worries about the animation quality, but it proved me wrong, and thankfully I really enjoyed that one. But no, Bartender Glass of God, I actually recently I had finished it last week, honestly, or this weekend while I was doing dishes of all things. And it's one of those things that the animation isn't great. Even the drinks don't look perfect or pretty like they should. Like that was the one thing that I want going into that show that I
It's like
was like
the biggest
you are
draw.
making a show about alcoholic drinks and beverages. They need and making them it needs to look pretty. If
Make them
anything in the show has to look pretty, it's that. But I
make them look
kept coming
tasty.
exactly. But I kept coming back because not because of the animation, not because of the drinks, but because of the character interactions and them just kind of describing the drinks and almost in my like mind's eye just being able to taste what they are sipping and what they are drinking and just being like yes, I can fully understand that because of the quality of the sound design and the voice actors. Just from those two things alone, I felt like I was at a bar. I felt like I was there. I felt like I could taste the drinks that were in front of me despite the fact that those drinks weren't the highest quality animated.
Hmm.
I think that that show is very I think I gave it a 7 out of 10 if I'm being completely honest. And I'm gassing it because again, animation does count for something. The one thing I really wanted there wasn't there. But because they had such quality interactions with a lot of characters and they introduced a lot of characters who weren't boring. There wasn't a single character that I think that we met that I was like this person's a schmuck, this person's an idiot, this person is not like interesting at all. Like
Yeah.
everybody that they introduced throughout the show, I really enjoyed their presence for one reason or another. And I think that that's just a quality to whomever adapted the script and the voice actors. If you can have those two things at minimum, I think that you're like in for a good time. But again, animation does count for something, and the fact in the matter is that this season between Uzumaki episodes 2 and 3, still pending on episode 4, and then Blue Lock PNG edition,
Mm.
It's a little worrisome that, these high profile shows are trending in the wrong direction. They're just kind of, I don't know if it's because they don't have the budget, if they don't have the manpower, what's going on there, but it is a bit worrisome that by episode 2, you're not presenting something that is great. Like, you presented us with an episode 1 that was good, or a season 1 that was good, if not mostly passable. You've
Hmm.
introduced at least a story that we're invested in, and then you kinda throw us together and you're just like, "Hmm, this isn't the greatest." This is a stark contrast in quality. So, does animation count for everything? No. Does animation count for a lot? If you're presenting us with one thing and then pull the rug out from underneath us, yeah, it does,
Yeah.
because you can't look away from it. You have an expectation, you've met an expectation, and then you fucking dive bomb that expectation into the ground.
Yep.
And I think that that counts for a lot. But in my opinion, there are a handful of shows this season so far that have exceeded expectations slash quality expectations. And that being Don to Don, which back in January called it, this is going to be the biggest show of the year. And sure as hell, it is going to be the biggest show of the year. I haven't seen a bigger bombastic episode 1 and internet discussion about internet or episode 1 in a very long time.
I think
So,
Chainsaw Man's the only one I can think of
and
recently.
even then, people were very like yes, no about episode 1 of Chainsaw Man. This has been a resounding like yes for Don to Don. But Don to Don has been a very good quality show so far. I've seen the first 3 episodes because I watched it in theaters. I know that episode 3 is good quality as well. Um, and the other one being Blue Box. Blue Box is, or there's sorry, there's 2 others I was going to discuss. Blue Box. Blue Box episode 1 and 2, phenomenal. I watched episode 1 and it was a skip and loafer effect in my opinion to me, which if you haven't been following us and you know nothing about me, I watched episode 1 of Skip and Loafer and proceeded to read the rest of what was out for Skip and Loafer within a week.
Yep.
Currently, I am on volume 12 of Blue Box. Within a week of watching episode 1, I read through a ton of Blue Box. I'm enjoying the show. I'm enjoying the manga now. So I think those 2 shows have done a stellar job. And then, as we discussed earlier in the show, Ranma one half
Hmm.
quality. I think because the entirety of the season is already done, I think that the quality is going to remain throughout the season. But the first 2 episodes have been a blast, and they've
Yeah.
been great quality for both of them too. Granted, they're adapting an older series, but at the same time, there comes some trials and tribulations with adapting an older series and art style like that. But I think that they've nailed it. They've nailed the voice acting as well, both English and Japanese. I watched episode 1 in Japanese, watched episode 2 in English. English dub for Ranma, phenomenal. I think it's great. I've been absolutely enjoying it. So I think those 3 shows, like if you are looking for stellar quality that is going to remain throughout the entirety of the season, I think those are the 3 big ticket shows that are gonna come out this season.
Yeah. No, I agree. I
So
think, I mean, you can add ReZero, you can add Bleach, you can
fuck,
add a lot.
I have yet to I've yet to watch ReZero or Bleach. There's so much this season.
Yeah.
There's so much.
Yeah. There's a lot. You just, you always want the best for the anime that's airing, and
You do.
it's always disheartening when something like an Uzumaki and what we've seen so far, at least from Blue Lock, take place. But you can at least relish in the fact that there are plenty of other amazing anime to watch that will satisfy any avid fan's needs.
Yes, and hopefully we've satisfied your need with another good episode. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We greatly appreciate any and all time you've spent with us, even if you haven't made it to this point and I'm just talking into the void. We will be back next week with a brand new episode, but if you're wanting more and more of our lovely, sweet presence, which I would greatly appreciate, but also question your sanity, we are on TikTok and YouTube with shorts coming out almost daily. You have been carrying that horse through the field. I greatly appreciate you doing that. But I will be hopping back in here soon on the short form content. And then also, if you do want to see us in person, we will be at Umicon at the end of the month. If you are in the Detroit area, at the end of the month for Halloween. We will be at Umicon. We have panels on Thursday and I believe Friday as well.
Yeah. And then
Um,
we'll be assisting with my wife, who also has panels on Friday and Saturday.
so
If a fan of girls, gays, and anime.
yes, so we will be around the convention a lot, and we will be presenting multiple panels and helping with other panels. So if you are in the area, come say hi, come to a panel or two. We'll put out our schedule later this week as to what hall we're in, what time we're at, so that way you can find us and come say hi. But yeah, we'll be doing that's kind of our immediate schedule, but we'll again be back next week with a brand new episode. So until then, Spark Triumph. We'll see you later.